The $6 Million Man is an American television series about a former astronaut with bionic implants working for a fictional government office known as OSI. The series is based on the Martin Caidin novel Cyborg, which was the series' proposed title during pre-production. Following 3 television movies aired in 1973, The $6 Million Man aired on the ABC network as a regular series for 5 seasons from 1974 to 1978. The title role of Steve Austin was played by Lee Majors, who subsequently became a pop culture icon of the 1970s. A spin-off series, The Bionic Woman, ran from 1976 to 1978. Several television movies featuring both eponymous characters were also produced between 1987 and 1994. Overview: when astronaut Steve Austin is severely injured in the crash of an experimental lifting body aircraft, he is rebuilt in an operation that costs $6 million. His right arm, both legs and the left eye are replaced with bionic implants that enhance his strength, speed and vision far above human norms. He can run at speeds of 60 mph, and his eye has a 21 zoom lens and infrared capabilities, while his bionic limbs all have the equivalent power of a bulldozer. He uses his enhanced abilities to work for the OSI as a secret agent. Caidin's novel Cyborg was a bestseller when it was published in 1972. He followed it up with 3 sequels, Operation Nuke, High Crystal, and Cyborg 4, respectively, about a black market in nuclear weapons, a Chariots of the Gods scenario, and fusing Austin's bionic hardware to a spaceplane. None of these plot lines were used in the TV series. In March 1973, Cyborg was loosely adapted as a made-for-TV movie titled The $6 Million Man starring Majors as Austin. The adaptation was done by writer Howard Rodman, working under the pseudonym of Henri Simone. The film, which was nominated for a Hugo Award, modified Caidin's plot, and notably made Austin a civilian astronaut rather than a colonel in the United States Air Force. Absent were some of the standard features of the later series, the electronic sound effects, the slow-motion running, and the character of Oscar Goldman. Instead, another character named Oliver Spencer, played by Darren McGavin, was Austin's supervisor, of an organization here called the OSO. The lead scientist involved in implanting Austin's bionic hardware, Dr. Rudy Wells, was played in the pilot by Martin Balsam, then on an occasional basis in the series by Alan Oppenheimer, and, finally, as a series regular, by Martin E. Brooks. Austin did not use the enhanced capabilities of his bionic eye during the first TV movie. The first movie was a major ratings success and was followed by 2 more made-for-TV movies in October and November 1973. The first was titled The $6 Million Man, Wine, Women and War, and the second was titled The $6 Million Man, The Solid Gold Kidnapping. The first of these 2 bore strong resemblances to Caidin's second Cyborg novel, Operation Nuke. The second, however, was an original story. This was followed in January 1974 by the debut of The $6 Million Man as a weekly hour-long series. The last 2 movies, produced by Glenn A. Larson, notably introduced a James Bond flavor to the series and reinstated Austin's status from the novels as an Air Force colonel. The hour-long series, produced by Harve Bennett, dispensed with the James Bond gloss of the movies, and portrayed a more down-to-earth Austin. The show was very popular during its run and introduced several pop culture elements of the 1970s, such as the show's opening catchphrase, the slow-motion action sequences, and the accompanying electronic sound effects. The slow-motion action sequences were originally referred to as kung fu slow motion in popular culture. In 1975, a 2-part episode entitled The Bionic Woman, written for television by Kenneth Johnson, introduced the character of Jaime Summers, a professional tennis player who rekindled an old romance with Austin, only to experience a parachuting accident that resulted in her being given bionic parts similar to Austin. Ultimately, her body rejected her bionic hardware and she died. The character was very popular, however, and the following season it was revealed that she had actually survived, having been saved by an experimental cryogenic procedure, and she was given her own spin-off series, The Bionic Woman, which lasted until 1978 when both it and The $6 Million Man were simultaneously cancelled, even though by the time their final seasons aired, the series were on different networks. Made-for-television movie reunions, Steve Austin and Jaime Summers returned in 3 subsequent made-for-television movies, The Return of the $6 Million Man and The Bionic Woman, Bionic Showdown which featured Sandra Bullock in an early role as a new Bionic Woman, and Bionic Ever After, in which Austin and Summers finally marry. Majors reprised the role of Steve Austin in all 3 productions, which also featured Richard Anderson and Martin E. Brooks, and Lindsay Wagner reprising the role of Jaime Summers. The reunion films addressed the partial amnesia Summers had suffered during the original series, and all 3 featured Majors' son, Lee Majors II, as OSI agent Jim Castilian. The first 2 movies were written in the anticipation of creating new bionic characters in their own series, but nothing further was seen of the new characters introduced in those produced. The third TV movie was intended as a finale. Feature film adaptation attempts. For many years, attempts have been made to bring the story of Steve Austin to the movie screen. In the mid-1990s, director Kevin Smith wrote a screenplay, and there were reports later that comedian Chris Rock was being considered for the role. In 2003, an announcement was made to film the story as a full-out comedy starring Jim Carrey, but that project appears to be on hold. In a July 2006 interview at Comic-Con, Richard Anderson stated that he was involved with producing a movie of the series, but the rights were at the time in litigation between Miramax and Universal. Smith's screenplay was later adapted for The Bionic Man, an ongoing comic book series launched in 2011 by Dynamite Comics. Opening sequence. The dialogue spoken by actor Lee Majors during the opening credits is based upon communication prior to the M2F2 crash that occurred on May 10, 1967. Test pilot Bruce Peterson's lifting body aircraft hit the ground at approximately 250 mph and tumbled 6 times. But Peterson survived what appeared to be a fatal accident, though he later lost an eye due to infection. In the episode The Deadly Replay, Oscar Goldman refers to the lifting body aircraft in which Austin crashed as the HL-10, stating "We've rebuilt the HL-10." In the 1987 TV film The Return of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman, Austin refers to the craft as the M3F5, which was the name used for the aircraft that crashed in the original Cyborg novel. In the opening sequence, a narrator identifies the protagonist, Steve Austin, astronaut. A man barely alive. Richard Anderson, in character as Oscar Goldman, then intones off camera, "Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man. Steve Austin will be that man. Better than he was before. Better. Stronger. Faster." During the first season, beginning with Population 0, Anderson, as Goldman, intoned more simply, "We can rebuild him. We have the technology. We can make him better than he was. Better. Stronger. Faster." During the operation, when he is having his bionics fitted, a list of items and numbers is displayed and lists his power plant as atomic. Theme music. Dusty Springfield, backed by Ron Escalade Piscina, sang the theme song written by Glenn A. Larson, which was used in the opening and closing credits for the Wine, Women and War on the Solid Gold kidnapping telefilms. The song was also used in the promotion of the series, but when the weekly series began the song was replaced by the instrumental theme by Oliver Nelson. The first regular episode, Population 0, introduced a new element of the opening sequence, a voiceover by Oscar Goldman stating the rationale behind creating a bionic man. The first season narration was shorter than that used in the second and subsequent seasons. Characters. Steve Austin, the lead character, Oscar Goldman, director of the OSI. Dr. Rudy Wells, Austin's physician and primary overseer of the medical aspects of bionic technology, Jaime Summers, Peggy Colohan, secretary to Oscar Goldman, Oliver Spencer, director of the OSO in the pilot, Steve Austin's bionic hardware. To maintain the show's plausibility, producer Kenneth Johnson set very specific limits on Steve Austin's abilities. He elaborated, when you're a Euro unregistered trademark dealing with the area of fantasy, if you say, a Euro well, they're Euro unregistered trademark Bionic so they can do whatever they want, a Euro unregistered trademark then it gets out of hand, so you're a Euro unregistered trademark they got to have really, really tight rules. Steve and Jaime can jump up 2 stories but not 3. They can jump down 3 stories but not 4. Austin's superhuman enhancements included, a bionic left eye with a 20.21 zoom lens along with a night vision function. A figure of 20.21 is taken from the faux computer graphics in the opening credits. The figure 21 is mentioned twice in the series, in the episode Population, Zero, and Secret of Bigfoot. Austin's bionic eye also has other features, such as an infrared filter used frequently to see in the dark and also to detect heat, and the ability to view humanoid beings moving too fast for a normal eye to see. One early episode shows the eye as a deadly accurate targeting device for his throwing arm. In Caidin's original novels, Austin's eye was depicted as simply a camera and Austin remained blind in the eye. Later, Austin gained the ability to shoot a laser from the eye. The Charlton Comics comic book spin-off from the series also established that Austin's bionic eye could shoot a laser beam, but neither function was shown on television. Bionic legs allowing him to run at tremendous speed and make great leaps. Austin's upper speed limit was never firmly established, although a speed of 60 mph is commonly quoted since this figure is shown on a speed gauge during the opening credits. The highest speed ever shown in the series on a speed gauge is 67 mph in the Palmyra Escort. However, the later revival films suggested that he could run approximately 90 mph. A faster top speed is possible, as an episode of the Bionic Woman spin-off entitled Winning is Everything shows female cyborg Jaime Summers outrunning a race car going 100 mph. In Secret of Bigfoot it's stated that he can leap 30 feet high. A bionic right arm with the equivalent strength of a bulldozer. That the arm contains a Geiger counter was established in Doomsday and Counting, the 6th episode of the 1st season. The implants have a major flaw in that extreme cold interferes with their functions and can disable them given sufficient exposure. However, when Austin returns to a warmer temperature, the implants quickly regain full functionality. The 1st season also established that Austin's bionics malfunction in the microgravity of space, though Austin's bionics are later modified to rectify this. The bionic eye is vulnerable to ultrasonic attack, resulting in blindness and dizziness. To indicate to viewers that Austin was running or using his bionic arm, sequences with him using these abilities were presented in slow motion and accompanied by an electronic dit-dit-dit-dit sound effect. When the bionic eye was used, the camera would zoom in on Austin's face, followed by an extreme close-up of his eye. His point of view usually included a crosshair motif accompanied by a beeping sound effect. In early episodes, different ways of presenting Austin's powers were tested, including a heartbeat sound effect that predated the electronic sound, and in the 3 original made-for-TV movies, no sound effects or slow motion were used, with Austin's actions shown at normal speed. The slow-motion portrayal was introduced with the first hour-long episode, Population, Zero. Episodes. Novels. Martin Caidin wrote 4 novels featuring his original version of Steve Austin beginning in 1972 with Cyborg. Although several other writers such as Mike Jahn would later write a number of novelizations based upon the TV series, in most cases these writers chose to base their character upon the literary version of Austin rather than the TV show version. As a result, several of the novelizations have entire scenes and in one case an ending that differed from the original episodes, as the cold-blooded killer of Caidin's novels handled things somewhat differently from his non-killing TV counterpart. For example, the Jahn book International Incidents, an adaptation of the episode Love Song for Tanya, ends with Austin using the poison dart gun in his bionic hand to kill an enemy agent. Since the TV version of the character lacked this weapon, the villain was simply captured in the episode as broadcast. Original novels, all by Martin Caidin, Cyborg, Operation Nuke, High Crystal, Cyborg 4, of the above, only Cyborg was adapted for television. Novelizations, Wine, Women and War Mike Jahn, Solid Gold Kidnapping Evan Richards, Pilot Error J. Barbary, The Rescue of Athena 1 Jahn, The Secret of Bigfoot Pass Jahn, International Incidents Jahn, Other Adaptations. Charlton Comics published both a color comic book and a black and white, illustrated magazine, featuring original adventures as well as differing adaptations of the original TV movie. While the comic book was closely based upon the series, the magazine was darker and more violent and seemed to be based more upon the literary version of the character. Both magazines were cancelled around the same time the TV series ended. Artists Howard Chaykin and Neil Adams were frequent contributors to both publications. A British comic strip version was also produced, written by Angus P. Allen, drawn by Martin Asbury and printed in TV Comic Look-In. A series of stand-alone comic strips was printed on the packaging of a series of model kits by Fun Dimensions based upon the series. In Colombia, a black-and-white comic book series was published in the late 70s, with art and stories by Jorge P. +/-A. This series was licensed by Universal Studios to Greco, then known as Editora Cinco, now part of Grupo Editorial Televisa. In France, TAR Copyright La Copyright Junior, a magazine devoted to comic book adaptations of all sorts of TV series and cartoons, also featured a $6 Million Man comic with art by Pierre Le Goff and stories by Peter Bett and Bodis. A trad paperback reprinting several episodes from the magazine was released in October, 1980. Peter Pan Records and its sister company Power Records published several record albums featuring original dramatized stories, several of which were also adapted as comic books designed to be read along with the recording. 3 albums worth of stories were released, one of which featured Christmas-themed stories. Individual stories were also released in other formats, including 7-in singles. In 1996, a new comic book series entitled Bionics was announced, to be published by Maximum Press. The comic was to have been an updated version of both the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman and feature new renditions of the two characters. Although the magazine was advertised in comic book trade publications, it was ultimately never published. On August 24, 2011, Dynamite Comics published the first issue of The Bionic Man, an adaptation written by Kevin Smith based upon a screenplay he had written for a never-produced 1990s motion picture version of The $6 Million Man. After concluding the adaptation in the spring of 2012, the comic series moved on to original stories, as well as a reimagining of the original TV series Secret of Bigfoot storyline. A spin-off comic reimagining The Bionic Woman followed a few months later, and in January 2013 Dynamite launched a crossover mini-series, The Bionic Man vs. The Bionic Woman. The artwork in these series, covers and interiors, varies between Austin being rendered in the likeness of Lee Majors and not. American Samoa, 2014 began. Dynamite discontinued its reboot titles and replaced them with a new ongoing series, The $6 Million Man Season 6, continuing the adventures of Austin from the conclusion of the 1977-78 season and featuring not only the likeness of Lee Majors, but also other recurring actors such as Richard Anderson, as well as Darren McGavin as Oliver Spencer from the first TV movie. Jaime Summers was reintroduced from issue 3, with a spin-off comic series, The Bionic Woman Season 4, announced in June 2014 with a scheduled launch in the fall of 2014. In the animated cartoon show The Venture Brothers on Adult Swim, a character named Steve Summers satirizes the $6 Million Man. The character mimics the appearance, mannerisms and bionic implants of the popular television series in a comical fashion. Merchandise: The $6 Million Man spawned a number of toys, 2 Parker Brothers board games, and other licensed merchandise. Everything from lunch boxes and running shoes to children's eyeglasses and bedsheets all carried images of Steve Austin. The 12-in-tall Steve Austin action figure marketed by Kenner in the mid-1970s was particularly popular, and intact $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman toys continue to attract premium prices on the collector's market. Besides the lead characters, 12-in-scale action figures were also produced of Oscar Goldman, equipped with an exploding briefcase similar to the type used by James Bond in From Russia with Love. Mazcatron, an android character based on a robot duplicate of one of Austin's friends, Major Fred Sloan. A fembot. And the recurring character of Bigfoot High. Associated merchandise for use with the action figures included a rocket ship that could transform into a bionic repair station, an inflatable command base, auxiliary bionic arms with different features, auxiliary bionic legs with different features. Fully intact Steve Austin action figures are rare. The bionic right arms of the doll's action figures were covered in inelastic, skin-like material that was intended to be rolled back to reveal bionic modules underneath, and this material tended to deteriorate over time. Early versions of the arms also included removable bionic modules that could be easily lost. Later versions of the action figure included modules that could not be removed. Bally Manufacturing produced a $6 million man-coin-operated pinball machine in 1978. This was the only pinball machine they produced that could be played by up to 6 players at a time. Cultural influence. In Brazil, under the military dictatorship, some important government officials previously elected by direct suffrage were appointed by the president, or elected indirectly, out of a short list picked by the president. These politicians were called bionic, due to the series' popularity, and the association with the perceived extraordinary power and influence held by the appointed officials. Between 1964 and 1985, Brazil came to have bionic senators, governors and mayors. With the 1988 Constitution of Brazil, all bionic appointments were abolished. In Israel, the series was retitled The Man Worth Millions since 6 million evoked memories of the Holocaust, specifically the most commonly quoted estimate of the number of Jewish victims. DVD releases. Universal Playback released the first 2 seasons of The $6 Million Man on DVD in Region 2 and Region 4 in 2005 (2006). The first 3 seasons were also released on the Italian market in late 2008. The Season 1 release also features the 3 pilot movies that preceded the weekly series. The Region 1 release, along with that of The Bionic Woman, was one of the most eagerly awaited. Its release had been withheld for many years due to copyright issues regarding the original novel. In fact, with the exception of a few episodes released in the DiscoVision format in the early 1980s and a single VHS release of the 2-part The Bionic Woman storyline that same decade, the series as a whole had never been released in North America in any home video format. On July 21, 2010, however, Tamiya Life announced the release of a complete series box set of The $6 Million Man on DVD in Region 1 for the first time on November 23, 2010. The 40-disc set features all 99 episodes of the series as well as the 3 pilot films and the 3 reunion TV movies, which also feature Jaime Summers, along with several episodes of The Bionic Woman that were part of inter-series crossovers in order to include complete storylines. In addition, the set features extensive bonus features including interviews and featurettes with all major cast members, and the set comes encased in collectible packaging that includes a sound chip, activated when the box is opened, that plays back part of the first season opening credits dialogue. The release is available directly through Time Life's 6MDM website as well as through several third-party online vendors. In November 2011, Universal Studios Home Entertainment began releasing individual season sets of the series on DVD, available in retail stores. They have subsequently released the first 4 seasons. The 5th and final season will be released on February 18, 2014. Several episodes of The $6 Million Man actually saw their North American DVD debut several weeks in advance of the box set, as Universal Home Video included the 3 crossover episodes that helped launch The Bionic Woman as bonuses on the October 19, 2010 DVD release of Season 1 of The Bionic Woman. See also, A Man Called Sloan, Inspector Gadget, Jake 2.0, Now and Again, RoboCop, Max Steel, Deus Ex, Human Revolution, Footnotes. References and notes. Further reading, Pilato, Herbie J. The Bionic Book, The $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman Reconstructed. ISBN 978-1-59393-083-7. External links, The $6 Million Man at the Internet Movie Database. The $6 Million Man at the Internet Movie Database, The $6 Million Man at TV.com.